Alright, we're back doing some more tech tip videos. Today we're going to go over gearing and lower unit maintenance. The first thing that I kind of want to go over is gearing. While we're doing this, if you have any questions that you want to ask, even if they don't have anything to do with what we're talking about, please let us know and we'll ask them at the end, and we're going to do a little giveaway for this hat. Okay, gearing. When you have a Mud Buddy, the nice thing about it is there's many options for gearing. So if you've got a really heavy boat or a light boat, or you have you're planning on carrying lots of guys and gear, you add power to it. You can change your gear ratio to stay in the right RPM range. Personally, with a stock motor, I like to be right around 4,000. With a modified motor, you want to be somewhere around 4,400, 4,500 max. So let's say you buy a stock motor from Mud Buddy. It's typically going to come with a 38 top gear and a 50 bottom gear. Now, let's say you decide to add some performance heads, a carb kit, and a muffler. So you've got quite a bit more power now. It's going to bring your RPMs up. So let's say your RPMs are running in the 4,600 RPM range now that you've done those mods. What you're going to want to do is change the gear ratio, which is I prefer to do it on the bottom end. You can also do it on the top end, on the top sprocket. That involves disassembling your clutch. It's much simpler to do on the bottom end. So I'm going to go over that right now, exactly how to do that. This is exactly what it's going to look like when it comes off your motor. You can see these. There's three Allen holes here. Two of them are going to have studs installed, and one of them doesn't. So using impact is the best way to do it. Pull these studs out, and then you're going to take one of these studs that you pulled out and install it into the one that was empty. Let's see, we've got to get it lined up here. Of course, it doesn't want to get lined up. There we go. So as you drive that in, it's going to separate the sprocket from the bushing. Now you'll be able to pull it off. Comes off in these two pieces, and then you've also got this this woodruff key here, and then a spacer. What this spacer does is it keeps the proper distance for your sprocket, so your belt rides directly in the center of the sprocket. Okay, so back to that scenario. Your RPMs are too high. You've got a 50 tooth on here now. Every tooth that you drop is going to change at approximately 100 RPMs. So if you want to get back down to the 4,500 RPM range, I would suggest going to probably a 48 tooth. So let's say this is a 48 tooth and we want to install it again. Pull that screw back out of where you had it. Line these holes back up. Put your woodruff key back in. You can get these studs just started by hand to get them kind of lined up. If you've got any gunk or anything on the shaft, I'd take some emery cloth and clean that off first. But go ahead and slide this on here. And run it all the way up tight against that spacer that I showed you earlier. Now we're going to take an impact again. Run that up tight. I didn't check what the torque specs were, but I'll leave that in the comments after. for torque on these two studs.
Do you recommend Loctite?
Yeah, we definitely use, I like to run a blue Loctite on these bolts. Sometimes if you use red, you're asking for trouble, so I use blue. All right, the next thing we want to go over is lower unit maintenance. We recommend every 50 hours to check and add grease to your drive. You never want to just take your grease gun and just start pumping grease into it. If you do, you're going to blow out the seals and you're going to cause a mess inside your belt housing, cover your clutch in grease, and nothing's going to work. So if you want to come over here, I'll show you what you need to do. There's a vent bolt right here. We're going to pull this bolt out. She's got plenty of grease in her. As you can see, that bolt had some Permatex on it. We use Permatex for a thread sealant so the water stays out. There was just a little air bubble in there. All right, so now we just add grease at this back grease zerk right here. If it comes out of this hole watery or black or smells funny at all, then you're going to want to keep pushing good grease all the way through, push all the bad grease out until you get good grease coming back in. This is a brand new drive that we're just showing this demo on, so it's obviously going to be brand new grease. But we'll put a little bit of grease in there, let it come all the way out, and then if you're doing this when your drive is installed on the motor, I like to start it and let it run for about 15 minutes. If you do that, it'll heat the grease up, it'll expand, and then when you put that bolt in, you're not expanding all that grease. It's got somewhere to go. And just put your bolt back in, and you're ready to go.
What about some of the older styles? I know some of the older styles don't have the grease zerks on them. How do they go about greasing their drive without the grease zerks?
Good question. The really older ones, like 2002 to 2005, may not have had a vent bolt. So in that case, what we'll do is we'll remove this seal cap and pull it out just enough so there's some airspace by your bearings here. That will let it vent somewhere, and then pump grease in up here on this grease zerk until the grease comes out by the seals. Something that you can do to modify it is, instead of having to pull that seal cap, you can go ahead and drill and tap your own vent hole and do the same thing like we've got now.
And grease zerks as well, correct?
Yep, you can thread it for a quarter 28 grease zerk, and then just have a vent bolt on the other end. That way you can push grease all the way through. Do we have any questions?
We've got one here from Chris Bird. He says, I'm wanting to upgrade to a Mako kit on my 37 HDR, but can't swing spending over $3,000 all at once. What are some options that I can do along to eventually get me to the horsepower of the Mako kit?
Well, that's kind of the beauty of our system is we have three kits or stages. You can start out with the Cayman kit, which is basically cylinder heads, muffler, and air filter. The thing with our kit is our tuner that you use to adjust the fuel map has 3 stages built into it already with a dial. So if you wanted to start out with that Cayman kit, then you just turn the dial to number 1. 6 months from now you think, well, I need a little bit more power, I want to add a cam and do the Barracuda kit. So you add your cam, and then you turn the dial to number 2, and you don't have to mess around with trying to send your computer back and having them re-flash your computer. All you've got to do is take a small screwdriver, turn it to number 2, and it's set. Same thing if you want to go to the Mako kit 6 months later. You add those parts, turn it to number 3, and you're ready to go. We've got all those kits and prices and everything on our website if you want to check those out, backwaterperformance.com. And we'll go ahead and hook you up with this hat for that question. We've got small or large, so send us a message and let us know what size you want and your address and phone number, and we'll get that sent out to you. That's it for this week.